Hello, my fellow bikini geeks. It is your host, Christina Friscia here, IFBB Bikini Pro with the Bikini Geek Podcast. Thank you for joining us for another episode. And I am so excited for today's episode because I am doing my first interview for the Bikini Geek today. And I have none other than your favorite IFBB Bikini girl, Tianna. Hey, Tianna, what's going
Hi,
on?
how are
Thank
you?
you for joining us. Me. I'm doing great. You look beautiful as always. I love your freaking hair, your skin, your smile. I'm so happy you're here today. I feel so honored that you're taking the time to
Well,
talk to
I'm
me.
happy that we could do this because it's been so long since we've had an in-depth conversation since we got our pro cards at Junior Nats. So
Yes,
I'm excited.
me too. So for those of you who don't know, or if you don't follow myself, or if you don't follow Tianna, you should make sure you follow her on social media. I'll send all the links in the description on the bottom below. But Tianna and I actually won our pro cards on the same day at 2022 Junior Nationals.
Mm-hmm.
Tianna, tell us, we both have a story when it comes to Junior Nationals that year, but tell everyone your story in terms of how that happened for you and kind of give us a little intro on yourself as an athlete, as a competitor, kind of how you got into the sport, and then let us know your story about how you won your pro card.
Okay, so we'll start from day one. Basically, I was 14. I was already recovering from an eating disorder, and I know there's controversy between oh, bodybuilding is bad for people who have had past eating disorders, blah blah blah. So I'm just speaking on my behalf here, but it actually gave me a new outlook to realize I don't need to be chasing a smaller physique. I can be chasing health and growing, like seeing beauty and growth. So for me, I approached the gym with the mindset of I want to build. I want to do like a powerlifting style, if that makes sense. So
Is that what you got started with, was powerlifting?
kind of, it was more like power
Okay.
building. So I worked with the trainer my first day at the gym, and he explained to me, okay, you're going to do 12 reps of lateral raises, but you need to rest before you do the next set. And
Mm,
I thought it was just 12 and then 12 and keep going until you're you know, tired, but he was like, "No, you need to be recovered enough for your next set." And he showed me how to deadlift, how to bench, everything. We just went over the basics and all the fundamentals. So then I realized the importance of rest and recovery. I also realized how much I was under eating, even though I was trying to eat more and not even dichotomize food as good and bad, just eating more, I still was subconsciously under eating. So I
mm,
learned how vital carbs are and how important getting in enough carbs and fat are throughout the day, because you're going to feel lightheaded if you don't have the nutrients in you. And I
right.
worked out fasted for a little bit, and I didn't realize, I mean, it works for some people, but for my personal goals, it was going to not be, it wasn't conducive for what we were trying
Right.
to achieve. So then I'd say few months into that, I believe it was maybe 4 months into training with him, he was like, "Oh, you should compete." And there was a local bikini competitor at my gym, and she's a really good friend of mine to this day, Kara. And I saw her and I was like, "Wow, she's so beautiful, and she's, lifting and doing all these cool things." And I saw that she was competing at Emerald Cup, which is like a big regional show here in my area. And I was like,
Right.
wow, I hope one day I can compete at Emerald Cup too. And I thought this to myself when I was 14. So she was kind of the start, and then I started researching on bikini athletes, this and that. I followed Ashley, Jen, just I just found so much inspiration in all the bikini athletes, and I did some research on the division. And then I just had the goal. I was like, I want to compete before I'm 20. That's my personal goal. And then
Amazing.
from yeah, from there I just spent all of high school working towards bodybuilding, and not only just aesthetic, but mental too, mental goals, because you get pre-lift anxiety because you're going to have a hard leg day sometimes. So it's learning how to control your emotions, your thoughts, learning how to differentiate between, okay, does this muscle, is it a strain, is it an injury, is it just a pull? Just learning about how to listen to your body too, and it takes time.
It
um
does.
And like it's no perfect science. Like we're still learning to this day. So that's how I got started in all of that. And then senior year came. So summer
Senior
going to
year of high school. Let me
yeah.
stop her right there. Not senior year of college, senior year of high school. Okay,
Yeah.
continue.
Senior year of high school came, and it was kind of the year where I realized, okay, I need to get my stuff together now. Like I'm gonna do my college applications, write all my college essays, just get my life kind of figured out so I don't feel as behind, because I felt behind. I was like, oh, like I need to get started
Mm,
on college apps and all that. So
right.
I grinded through that. And then I knew that year, I was like, I think I'm gonna compete this year because I turn 18 later this year. So I think I'm going to start prep and start competing. So
Hmm.
I went into my first ever prep, started posing, I'd say 25 weeks out from the show, maybe even beforehand. And oh my gosh, it was so cool because I was like, wow, like I'm in prep now. Like this is so cool. All the people that I look up to, like I'm doing
Yeah.
something that they're doing that I've been watching on YouTube, like prep series and like prep diaries. And I watched
Hmm.
you on YouTube too. I remember there was a video that you did a national show. I think you placed fourth.
Yeah,
And
that
then
was
you were talking,
2021 Nationals.
yeah, and you were talking about how Will Sage had said that you had like your front pose was crazy or something like that.
Yeah.
And I
Nasty was
remember,
what he said. Your
yeah,
front pose is nasty. I'll never forget that. I was like, oh wow, thank you.
yeah. So I watched like every single prep diary on YouTube. I would watch that in the morning to get myself motivated.
Hmm.
I watched Jen Dory, I watched you, I watched Kerrigan, and it's so cool because now it's like these are my peers, these are my friends now, people
Right.
that I watched. I can actually, because Kerrigan and I are good friends, Jen and I are friends, you and I are really good friends. Like it's
Yep.
just really cool how like people that you've looked up to can become your friends and peers, and it's so humbling. So I did prep, and then April came and I got accepted, and I haven't actually shared this on a podcast before, but it was kind of, so I had surgery during prep. I
Oh wow.
had nose surgery for a deviated septum,
Hmm.
and my coach at the time said, I don't think that's the smartest idea because you're not going to be able to train for 3 weeks during prep. And then my mom told me, she was like, nothing's impossible. If you really want to do this, now's the time because
Wow.
you never know what's going to happen. So I was like, okay.
Hmm.
So I was just like, let's just hope for the best. So I did my
Okay.
surgery, wasn't supposed to do cardio until 3 weeks after, but I did cardio anyways after that, and it was fine though. Nothing bad happened,
Okay.
but
Good.
don't take my example on that. And then April came and I got accepted into my dream school, Seattle University, and I got an academic scholarship there. So I was like, wow,
Wow.
like this year's it's wow, like everything's coming together, like you feel like you're behind, but then you just continue to push yourself to grow in all avenues and you can achieve what you want to achieve. So I got my academic scholarship. My mom was so proud of me, and that was like the
Aw.
pinnacle of prep. And then I was 1 or 2 weeks out from my first ever show. And then I placed first in open, and then I just realized like up on stage I was like it's just an indescribable feeling. Like I don't know how to explain it. And I nobody knew who I was at the time or anything like that, and it was just so cool because I was just up on stage, just some 18-year-old kid, and nobody knew, and like it was just so awesome. And then
Wow.
I did Emerald Cup, which was my dream show since I was 14, and I had the privilege of winning my class in that show, and I bawled on stage, and I was like, oh
Aw.
my gosh, like I can't believe it.
Yep.
And then I did my first national show. I placed fourth at Junior USA's, which was so cool because I again went into my first ever national show. I didn't even know what a call out was, like
Mm.
at that point. Like I just didn't know what first, second, third call outs was. I just thought, okay, I'm gonna go up on stage, they're gonna judge me, I'm gonna get feedback, and then I assumed that I would be going into an off season after that because um I used my age as like a limitation. I was like, well, I'm too young to try again. But then my teammate at the time actually brought up Junior Nats, and she was doing it as well, and she said, hey T, like you should try doing junior nats. Like, you're ready, you're conditioned enough. It's just 4 more weeks. Why don't you try? And I thought to myself, I was like, there's something in my heart. There's this feeling in my heart that is
Mm-hmm.
telling me I did my first ever national show for a reason, to give me more self-belief and to give me more knowledge and education about what the whole world of competing entails. Because it's important to know what a call out is. It's important to know how to
Yep.
angle, and obviously I practiced all of that, but I really wanted to immerse myself in the education of the sport. And I began looking at things being like, okay, well, I need to ask myself, if I want to be pro one day, whether it's this year, next year, 5 years, 10 years from now, I need to ask myself, what would a pro do? So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, starting from here, that's exactly what I'm going to ask myself. And I just began just doing everything, not even like bodybuilding related, but everything in life, asking myself, what would a pro do? Not just a pro in the sport, but just a well-rounded person. So I was very, very intentional with everything. Maybe a little bit too intentional, because I found myself being really anxious to even think a certain way. Like, I
Really?
remember I forgot somebody in the room, it was a family member, they were coughing really loud, and I just thought to myself, oh, this is so annoying. And then
Uh,
and then like 5 seconds after that, I was like, oh my gosh, am I a bad person for thinking
oh
that this
no.
person
I must be
coughing
the worst person in the world then if that's the case, because the littlest things annoy me all the time, even when I'm not in prep. So that's
So
okay.
I think I was a little bit too, I think I thought about it too much in that sense.
Mm,
So I definitely am not like that anymore. But then I realized, I was like, oh shoot, Junior Nationals is literally the day after graduation. How am I going to make that happen? And I remember telling my
yeah.
coach, and my coach was like, really? So you're graduating and then you're going to come onto the plane? And I was like, yeah. And he was supportive. He was like, sure, let's do it. Let's have fun. Let's just do it. So I go to the stadium, I graduate, I rush back home, eat, and then I go to the gym, do my full body pump, pack. My mom and I hop on the plane, and it was an
Wow.
overnight flight. So we got there because it was 24 hours out from the show when we got there. Or no, 24 hours out after I graduated. We got there, took my check-ins, and then, yeah, it was like an overnight flight. Took my check-ins, and then just kind of waited and waited, ate, and then got my tan done, and then, you know, woke up the next day.
Survey things.
I'm trying to like figure out the timeline, because basically I went to the gym, got on the plane, because people ask, like, how was it 24 hours? So, 2 hours after graduation, finished my whole pump up, everything, got on the plane. The plane ride was, I think, 4 or 5 hours. So, we got there the same day that I graduated. And then I took my
Crazy.
check ins, went to bed, woke up the next morning. And then, yeah, it was like show day. And I remember not being
Crazy.
able to, like, use the bathroom. I was like, like, need to
Uh,
I need
yeah.
to, use the bathroom, but it happened, thank God. And
And
then,
then you
yeah,
won your pro card. That
I
show.
I honestly, it was
Amazing.
it was probably one of the best moments of my life, not because I won the pro card, but it was the train of events and
Hmm.
the mindset and just the whole journey in of itself. It was like, from the start, asking me what would a pro do, taking that risk, going, like, doing something that I envisioned in my head. I was like, wouldn't it be crazy if I just could come back with the crazy story of like graduating and then getting my pro card, and everything that I had manifested had happened. And like, it's just a blessing, like, I don't take it for granted. I also acknowledge, like, I don't want to make my whole personality trait about that, so I don't talk about it anymore unless somebody asks or anything like that, because there's so much more to everything than just like that moment, obviously. But
But it's
yeah.
still your story is how you got here. And it's like, it's such an amazingly inspirational story for all those young girls out there because, it's one thing to want to be in the sport and want to be a bikini athlete and like, try and find some inspiration through athletes that they follow online. But it's a whole other thing when you're in high school and you find someone who you can resonate with their story because it's so similar to yours, where they could pull from your situations that you've been through, pull from your past and be able to be like, wow, Tianna did it. There's no reason that I can't try at least,
That's
like I'm 35, so it's a lot different for a girl that's 17 in senior year looking at me when I'm twice her age than it is for you just a few years out of high school, because you're someone that now the younger generation can follow instead of just people assuming that they have to be 25 or older to really be good at this sport because everyone that they see is, entering their 30s, late
yeah,
20s. It could be kind of, I remember back when I first got my real estate license. This is unrelated, but I had similar feelings because everyone else in the industry is in their 30s and 40s. And
yeah,
then I think to myself, why would someone want to buy a house from me? I'm 22 years old. And so you
exactly.
have that almost like imposter syndrome, so to speak, where you're like, do I belong here yet? Like, was this like, is this a fluke, But
Yeah.
it's true. Like, you are a
Oh,
pro as much as
yeah.
anyone else is?
I definitely felt that my rookie pro season. And honestly, like thinking about it, and I've thought about it a lot, but it was an excuse. It was an excuse. Like age is just a number. It's not a limitation unless you
Right.
perceive it that way. It's all about perspective. And it's
Totally.
also really cool that you got your real estate license at 22. Like that is very, very impressive.
It was just another fluke thing too. But anyway, so tell us, what are you doing now in terms of the sport? You did some shows this year. What else are you doing?
So I am a full-time posing coach, and oh my gosh, I'm blessed. I love it so much. I pose for Team Elite Physique. Adam, my coach, he actually was the one that told me, "Hey, just do it. Like you clearly want to be a posing coach. You're already making posing videos out there and giving free tips. Like, why don't you just start posing coaching? You never know what could happen." So he was like,
Yeah,
"I want you on our team to be a posing coach," and I was like, "Oh my
that's
gosh!" Like
amazing.
I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna do it. And at first I was like, well, who, like similar to what you thought, who would take me seriously? I'm 20 years old. I've been in this
Right.
sport for 2.5 years now. And like, you know, like people are gonna be like, well, who does she think she is? Blah, blah, blah. And I was just like,
Yep.
I'll just let my teaching skills and the way that I teach speak for itself in a sense where I want so the way that I teach posing and the way that I teach anything, whether it's core control or anything related to that, I think back to school and I think back to all the teachers that I've had. And you know how in school some teachers you vibe really well with, or some teachers you just don't. In some
Yeah.
classes you understand it like that, or some classes you have to go home and study and
Right.
relearn everything. So for me, I thought to myself, okay, well, how, like, I don't want my clients just to come to me to learn posing. I want them to learn about how specific they're teaching, like how they need to learn, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like,
Totally.
are they more of a visual learner? Do they need me
Right.
to stand up and like give them an example? Do they need videos? Do they need text? So during sessions I write out paragraphs, or I'll do it after, and then like I take screenshots of my clients and put them side by side and send them directly to them, and we go over the cues. Because for instance, I have a cue, and I'm sure a lot of people know about this cue, but it's just, like chest up, tailbone up, but crunching the hips, like crunching the abs forward so you're not rounding out your belly. But when you explain that to someone, you're gonna have to explain it like like a bunch of different ways, because me saying that out loud, like to somebody listening now, that probably made absolutely no sense. So it's like now you have to think of different words and like,
Right.
expand your vocabulary and use specific verbiage and everything like that. So I just integrated how I learned at school, because I was always like the slower kid. It took me a really long time to learn things, and I'm just integrating what I used at school to help me to help my posing clients. And it's really cool because it gives you more critical thinking, it gets you excited, and it motivates me to continue school as well. So when I have my posing clients, I'm also like, okay, so this specific client learned this way, and this is a new trajectory that I've never tried. I'm going to apply this to my own studies at school
Oh,
and see if
wow.
this will help me. So all around it's like conducive to all parties, which is what I love. Like I always like to think of how I can make something deeper than it is when appropriate, obviously, but obviously some things are just as they are, no need to analyze or like be all philosophical, but for some things like you can expand and like see what else goes on underneath the surface level, if that makes sense. So,
Yeah,
it gets
totally.
me very, you can tell how passionate I am by how I'm talking about it, but that's what I love about posing coaching, and I'm doing it full time, which is so, it's such a blessing.
That's amazing. And I believe that just going off what you said, when it comes to people learning things in different ways, I totally understand that and I totally agree with that. And I think that most people listening will understand that. People, you can tell the exact same facts to two different people the
Mhm.
exact same way, and only one person may understand what you're saying, and the other person may
Exactly.
need to actually apply it to learn to learn how to
Exactly.
do it. But with that said, this is giving you a really great opportunity to now understand how you need to interact with people
Exactly.
overall, because
Yeah.
it gives you a better perception of how society kind of is, and like how
Yes.
certain people will act certain ways, and there's really nothing that you could do about that. You have to
Exactly.
adapt how you interact with them in order for you to get through to them. So it's really
Exactly.
like it's a great opportunity to just meet people and see how dynamic everyone is,
Mhm.
especially because we all have that one thing in common, which is wanting to compete and wanting to be a bikini athlete. But
Yeah.
then we're so different when it comes to other elements that you kind of now as a coach will have a really great understanding of how you can be the best coach, because you're getting so much experience with meeting different people, interacting with different people, trying to
Mhm.
teach them, and that it's just going to be like come so easy to you the more that you do it, because you're gaining so much like hands-on one-on-one experience.
I absolutely love it, and what I also love is how, I mean, obviously, because there's a fine line between, yes, you can have a connection with the client, but I also make sure that we always stay on track and everything. But after the session, if I don't have like back to back to back clients, some days I do, some days I don't. After a session, if a client really feels inclined to tell me something, or if they're just feeling a certain type of way, like about their like not even routine, but like just their prep or something like that, if
Hmm.
appropriate, and they express it to me, like it means a lot that people feel comfortable coming to me and being like, hey, I'm experiencing a little bit of burnout in terms of this and that, like, do you have any tips, or have you ever experienced this? And it's always so humbling when people feel comfortable and safe to say these things to you. And obviously, like, if it's like questions about a coach or something, absolutely not my place to speak on that whatsoever. So if that does come up, I shut that down. I say, hey, like, I'm not eligible to give you advice on this. I would talk to your coach, because
Right.
I'm very, very strict where it's posing coaching, not diet, nutrition, because
Hmm.
that's not my expertise and I don't have the
Right.
credentials for that. So I make sure if people do ask me questions, it's appropriate to answer and everything like that.
Right.
Because you know how the industry is. It's like loyalty is
Yeah.
everything, and like obviously making sure you're not stepping on anyone's toes or giving unsolicited advice or anything like that.
Right.
And you actually gave me a tip too. You reached out and you were like, "Hey, like take this with a grain of salt. Like do not take this if you don't want to hear it, but I have a suggestion about your suit top." And I was just like, "No, I am here for it. Like I want to learn. Like give me that suggestion." And then you had
Hmm.
mentioned like it would be more conducive to actually do a medium-sized top, because I don't have anything up here, so it would help with like the whole stage
Same.
look and everything. So,
Yeah.
I was really thankful that you reached out about that too.
Yeah, I mean, like I had said when I reached out to you, unsolicited advice, I feel like none of us really want to hear, but I
Yeah.
I felt that you and I had a good enough relationship
And we're
where
just
I
close
could just bring it
too.
up to you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that you did, because going like designing my next suit, I kept that in mind and I actually voiced that. And it was a great idea. So I'm really happy
Yeah.
about
Good.
that.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm happy. I mean, and like going off what I had said to you that day, it's like you're at the point where it's like not drastic transformations that you need to even think about anymore. And I think that that's really the goal to get to as an athlete, is where like 98.5% of your entire package is perfect and on point. But it's those little 1 to 2% changes that will really give you that attention to detail that will up level the look. And it could be the smallest little thing that
Hmm.
we don't even think about, or that it just goes overlooked, or we just assume is okay, until you see the alternative and you're like, wow, that really could
Yeah.
bring me to the next level. And it's changing my eyelashes to a different shape,
Yeah.
changing the part in my hair over 2 inches, like the smallest little things. Because when you're on stage, it's not like your day-to-day look. It's not
Yeah.
what you just like go to the mall and you want to look pretty, so you put a little glam on and like, some earrings, and you throw your jeans on. Like being on stage is like, it's like a monster of glam. You have to be like next level with the jewelry, with the tan, with the hair, with the makeup, with the finest detail on the suit, the connectors, like however low your straps are, something that like that drives me nuts is when girls have like this much of their strap fabric showing. Like just hike your connectors up more and tie it tighter. Like that, the connectors should sit here. You should see very little of the tie. Like those little things, if people just took a little note 2 seconds prior before getting on stage and just tied it a little tighter, like
Hmm.
move their hair over an inch, it really would transform what the judges see, because you have 0.5 seconds to get their attention and keep it. And if some judges see one thing they don't like, you're already docked points. So you
Yeah.
you want to control everything that you possibly can control.
Exactly.
With with
It's
that said,
little
keep going.
things.
Sorry.
No, no, no. I was gonna say, yeah, like the little things make the biggest difference, whether it comes to posing or the way that your suit looks and everything. Like
Yes.
it's like you put it in a really good perspective for me. It was like there's always that one thing, and it's that it factor, and you look at someone and you're just like, I can't put my finger on it, but they just have it, and it's like sometimes it's just those little details. And I actually, and another example was in my posing. I was practicing my individual routine, and I was like, there's something off about my entrance. I don't like it right now. I think it looks weird. So I was like, okay, well, let's focus on the tempo. Maybe if I move my other hand as this other hand is landing down, maybe that'll do something. I tried that out. I was like, nope, that's not it. I need to think. So I looked over the routine again because I filmed myself without a mirror and everything. That's how I
Hmm.
practice. And then I looked at my routine again and I was like, ah, I see. I need to let this hand finish the movement before I begin the next movement. It looks messy, even though it's like a split second thing, and the judges probably won't even judge that aspect of the routine, obviously, because it's not my front pose, it's just the entrance. But I was like, now I understand why it looked weird, and then I
Hmm.
fixed it. And it looked weird in my eyes at first, so it's all like
Yeah,
subjective, obviously.
it
Um,
is. It very much is.
yeah,
Very much is.
but yeah, again, little details make huge differences on stage.
Very much so. Very much so. I
Hmm.
really do love your posing now. I love the elegance of the hand movements that you do, and it's very graceful and beautiful. And that's like your posing right now is something that girls will look up to and want to be like, I want to look like that on stage.
That means
There are
so
routines.
much.
It's very true, because there are routines that we see and we come by that are just, they're good. They're just good enough. Like it's just, I'm on stage, I'm off stage, but there's really nothing memorable that will like stay in the back of your mind as like, I want to exude that person's posing when I'm doing my own. Like we never want to copy
Yeah.
someone's exact routine, but you want to bring elements that you enjoy into your
Mhm.
own and make it your own. And it'll never be exact, even if you did copy their exact routine. It will always be different because we have different bodies, we have different flows. But
Yeah.
your routine, I believe now, and everyone take a look at her recent shows. It was absolutely beautiful. You looked graceful, you looked
Thank you.
classy, you looked feminine, which I think is very important, because getting very stage lean and having muscle sometimes can not be super feminine. It can, very sometimes teeter on the line of looking a little not feminine. When our cheekbones get sunken in, when our, rib cages are showing, our chest plates, it can be like you have to do everything in your power to still look girly, to still look beautiful, to still look elegant, and when you are super lean, when you get very conditioned, your posing is going to be how you're able to control your beauty on stage. It's going to
Hmm.
be in your movements. It's going to be in how you move your body and how you position yourself. So that's really like, you know, off stage when most of us are in sweatpants and a messy bun with like mascara running down our eyes because we just got off cardio, you're not feeling your most beautiful. And it's hard
No.
to like look at yourself in the mirror when you're super lean sometimes, at least it is for me, and to be like, wow, I love the way I look right now. But it's not until like I hit my front pose where I'm like, yep, I got it. Now I do love the
Mm,
way I look. But just day to day walking around, it can be difficult to try and look at yourself. I think most of us can say when we're in a little bit of an off season and we're a little softer, we like the way we look a little bit more day to day.
yeah.
We're just in a more comfortable state of mind. We're not, so hyper focused on our ab veins showing 24/7. So it's just, that's the biggest thing that we can control as athletes when we get to a certain point of conditioning is when we get on stage, how beautiful we're going to present ourselves. How
And
much we're going to be able to keep their attention.
I really love your perspective on it too, because before coming on to this podcast, and I actually started listening to this podcast after I turned pro and everything. There was an episode that you talked about. It was, I believe it was suit design, and you talked about like the AB crystals and like all that stuff, and that's how I kind of realized there's a lot that goes into just our division, like in the female division
Yep.
specifically. A lot goes into it, and like the
A
the
lot.
color of the suit, the color of the suit also makes a big difference on stage. I
Yes.
learned that red is not my color for me.
You think so? I love you in red. I don't
Really,
know. I love you in red. I think it's hot.
I feel like I don't know why. I mean, I like red too, but I feel like
You won
that
your pro
color-
card in red. It obviously is a
yeah.
good color for you.
Yeah. I don't know why. I've been loving the OG color, which is purple, because that's when I won my first ever show in. So I
Hmm.
was like, I really like this color. Like, I just want to embrace it because it's like bringing me back to my roots. So it's hard
Right.
for me to like look at other colors, but that's just me being stubborn. I want to experiment other colors too, but I also know, orange probably won't look great on me for stage.
Yeah. That's never
Um,
a good color for stage period.
and like teal, I've tried that before. I didn't really like it. I got good feedback on it, but I personally don't think teal's for me.
Hmm.
And like I've never tried pink, but I want to see you in pink.
It's funny. In 2020, yeah, 2020 when I first started my first prep again after taking years off,
Mhm.
leading into my the March 2021 show that I did, the Baltimore Gladiator.
Yeah.
I during the Angel competition bikinis, they did a Black Friday sale, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna buy my suits now in preparation for March. And so I actually bought a pink suit at that
Mhm.
point, but it wasn't stoned, it was just like the plain suit with the connectors, and I was thinking maybe I'll stone it myself because I had a stone like design in my mind that I just wanted to do myself. I didn't even want to have to like figure out if they could
Mhm.
do it. And I don't know, I loved the pink suit. It was absolutely beautiful, but I never finished stoning it, and then I kind of just gave up and like took the connectors from it and put it on my green suit because I had different connectors on that. So it's kind of just like
I
a
love
disassembled pink suit
you.
right now, but what'd you say?
I love the green on you.
I didn't. So that's funny that you say that. It depends. Something that everyone needs to keep in mind when it comes to your suit color is number one, it looks different in person than it does in stage photos.
Yes.
And number two, it looks very different under different stage lights. So like when I did the Baltimore Gladiator, and you also have to remember that local shows, your regular regional like qualifying shows, your national qualifying shows are usually in smaller places like schools and like little rec centers and things like that. They're not in bigger like venues where national shows are typically held. So the lighting that you're going to get at a regional regular local show is going to be a lot worse than the lighting you'll see on a national stage.
Yeah.
It's obviously the promoters are entirely different 9 times out of 10 for those types of shows. So when I won the Baltimore Gladiator overall, I wore my green suit, and it was an emerald green suit. For those of you who don't know, it was like the OG, like Ashley Kaltwasser type of green that she would win the Olympia in. Um, but it looked black on on stage, like, and in stage photos, because the lighting was just not good. So because it was a dark green, it looked damn near like brown black on
Oh
stage. So
my
I was
gosh.
like, yeah, I didn't really love it. And then I wound up going into Junior Nationals 2021, and it looked more green on stage at that show
Yeah.
because that was a national show with a super bright background and lots of lights. So then I didn't hate it anymore. And then I wound up going into USA's, and I tried purple, and I hated purple. But in person, I loved it. It looked so beautiful. I felt so gorgeous in the purple. Then I look at my stage shots, and I'm like, ugh, I couldn't hate it more. I just like
Yeah.
was so disappointed. And it's just so funny how the colors work. So you do have to almost try different looks because you really never know what's going to look best on stage. It really doesn't matter what it looks like in your photos at home. It matters what it's going to look like under those stage lights when the judges are seeing you. You
Yeah.
can love a color like I did with the purple every day and be like, oh my God, I can't wait to wear this on stage. And then you're so disappointed when you actually are up there because it just doesn't read right. Especially the
Exactly.
crystals. The crystals can totally change the way a suit looks.
Yeah, especially like I'm not too familiar with like the different colors of the crystals, but I know there's like the AB crystals and then the
hmm
clear ones. And I know the AB crystals, they reflect better with the light if I'm not mistaken, or
I think so. That's what I think that they say. I think that the AB crystals, it does change the look of the suit though. If you're like
yeah,
looking to have like a true red, for example, you likely don't want to put AB red stones on it
yeah,
because it's the AB, what it does is it kind of reflects whatever is going on around it, and it picks up
yeah.
that color. So if you have like a red suit on with red stones and then red AB stones, but the floor in front of you is green, like green carpet or something, it's going to pick up that and reflect that off of the suit.
Hmm.
So I guess that's what they mean when they say that it picks up more like
Yeah.
reflection and light on stage, but it could work against you if it's not picking up the right colors.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas it could be beautiful as well, though. It just depends on what you're working with. But if you're
Exactly.
looking for a suit that has like a true color to it, you want to avoid the AB stones. You want to just go with the stones that are the color of that suit that you're looking to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love talking about the colors. I've never gotten to really like talk about suit colors in depth on a podcast before, so it's cool that we're kind of outlining this because I'm sure people listening will also be able to benefit from like, you know, suit color education.
Yes, totally. And it's very subjective. It really does depend on what you look like. It depends on your coloring. It depends on your hair. Once we get that stage tan, our coloring now is different. And so you have to keep that in mind. Like, ideally, what are you going to look like several shades darker against this color and then put it up against your skin? Some people like to play off their eye color when they choose a suit color. I'm not sure if I really think that that's necessary, because you're so far away from the judges that the odds that they're going to see the beauty of your bright blue eyes, it's not really going
Mhm.
to be able to be seen from that far away. So you
Yeah.
really do just want to go off your hair color and your kind of skin coloring and pick a color that's going to pop, not a
Mhm.
color that's going to blend. I've seen girls that get super dark on stage, they get super tan, and then they'll wear like a red suit, and you almost can't even see the difference between their skin and the red because it's almost like a mesh of warm. Whereas someone, if they get super dark like that, they may want to pick a color like a turquoise or like a bright teal green or something like that, a Kelly green, because that's really going to give you like some contrast. It's going to help you pop.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
Totally. All right, so let's get more into posing, if you don't mind,
Yes.
because I really want to talk to the girls about kind of your expertise and the things that you can kind of bring your perspective to the table about. So, what do
Mhm.
you feel are I guess like the key elements to a good bikini pose. Like what makes a really great bikini pose versus a good one?
Okay, so I'm gonna start with the front pose. So
Okay.
when you, and I'm going to use Laura Lee and Jen as examples, if that's
Okay.
okay.
Sure.
So when you see Laura Lee get into her front pose, do you notice how she does that little like swing and then she just opens right up into it? She looks confident, she's looking both directions of the stage, and she's staying put. So one thing I really love about both her and Jen is that when they hit their front pose, they're not fidgeting. They're not waving their arms, they're not
Yes.
twisting or turning. They just hit their front pose, they look here, they transition, and then they move on. And what I also like is it's not elaborate, it's not crazy, it's very simple, but they make the simple things look complicated basically. Like you wouldn't think that there's much strategy that goes into that arm swing into the front pose, but there very much is, because I tell
Yes.
my clients this. I was like, I don't want you swinging your arm right where your chest is, because that's going to look really high on stage. It's going to look like you're casting a spell, or you're like an airline person waving the wand. Like we don't want to do that.
Right.
So I say we're going to keep your arm loose, keep your wrist nice and loose, keep the wrist and the elbows aligned, but just keep it loose. And then you're going to swing, think about swinging outwards, but not too far. It's like so
Mhm.
much detail goes into
Yep.
it, but
Yep.
I've been teaching my clients the profile pose as well, which is, I don't think that's an official term, but I just use it. And it's basically your front pose, but both of your hands are on your thighs. It's that pose that everybody hits before they open up into the
Prior to
front
hitting the front
pose.
pose. Right.
And what I even cue myself when I do it, because I figured this out at Chicago Pro, your waist, your hips, everything. That's why I call it the profile pose, because it really needs to be to the side. And then when you open up
Mhm.
into your front pose, you're only thinking about opening up your upper body. You need to keep your belly button, your waist, your hips to
Right.
the side, because the key thing about the front pose is showcasing an hourglass physique, not a figure physique, not a huge X frame. You want an hourglass shape. And like the judges even say, like when we look at the front pose, or when we look at a bikini athlete, we don't the first thing that doesn't come to mind is muscle. The first thing that comes to mind is shape and how you're
Right.
executing that shape. So for me, what makes a great pose versus a good pose is when you hit that pose and you know you're hitting it right. You're putting enough weight distribution either on your bent leg or your straight leg, and it depends, it varies per person. um and what also makes a really great pose is when, because there is some strategy, some clients including myself, we need to flare our front lat and think about a string pulling it up to help us
Mm.
stay upright on stage. If you can hit that in your front pose with no fidgeting, like you're just hitting it and not just pulling yourself up after that, if you just hit it right then and there and get all the cues, all the mechanisms ingrained in your system, and you can hit it, that's what makes it a great front pose. And it takes time. I haven't mastered it yet. I don't know. I'm sure there's somebody out there that has mastered it, but I think that's what separates a great pose from a good pose. um so just like hitting it with confidence and having the cues in your head, but hitting them all simultaneously, not doing one thing after the other.
Mhm. That's very true. I totally agree. That's a great point. Not fidgeting is a big one. That's something
Mm-hmm.
that, from my experience, I have regretted so much watching
uh,
stage
Same.
things back. That was my when I did NPC Nationals in 2021, when I placed fourth. I was looking at the stage videos and I'm like, oh, why did I move so much? Why didn't I
Yeah,
just
same.
stick it and leave it? But it's like when your adrenaline is pumping and you're on stage and you're like so close to hitting the middle and you're getting moved around, you're
Mm-hmm.
like, you just want to keep perfecting it and like adjust, and like sometimes you're very tight together on stage and the girls keep moving in closer and closer because I think they feel that proximity to center means that you're going to get moved to center, and it's like, just leave me alone and move away. Like, let me hit my pose and you hit your pose over there and give us space. You know, it's like the men's bodybuilders when they're like, all right, guys, move back, get
Yeah,
away, stop elbow bumping us. Don't do that in bikini. That's something we
yeah.
should all practice while we're on this
We
podcast.
should stay on the
Please.
line.
Yes, on stage. Do not be that girl that's like elbow hitting the girl next to you because you're like the judges see that, and that's not a really great, feel of sportsmanship. Like, yes, it's a competition, but it doesn't have to be like nasty.
And
We all have a
also,
space.
yeah, and also, you know how, you have the line, don't purposely go in front of a competitor to be bigger than them on the line. That's just not very,
Yeah,
it's just not nice.
yeah.
Um, just, let's just stay on the line. Because
With
at the end of the
humility,
day,
please.
yeah. And also, one thing, this is still related to posing and everything, but one thing that I really love about like the moments before going on stage is when you're in line, you're with all the other girls and you see girls helping other girls. Like
Yes.
at Chicago Pro, I
Yeah.
remember Jessica was helping me fix my hair, making sure that my hair wasn't covering my glutes. I helped her fix her hair because she was wondering if there was a piece sticking out, and like it's just cool how we can be friends right before we step on stage, even though we're competing against each other. We're really
Right, right.
not, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's like, how does your individual physique line up to the criteria? It's not, and obviously we need other competitors there to compare and
Mhm.
contrast, but if you really think about it, we're not going up against other people. We're just using, they're just everybody around us, including yourself. We're just a tool to help the judges figure out what's the criteria, blah blah blah.
That's a great way to put it. I love that
Hmm.
perspective. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
plus, I mean, like, for me, I just don't like it when, I mean, for me personally, I never ever like to think, oh, I'm gonna dominate. I'm here to take it all. Like, no, I'm not here to take it all. I'm just here to do my best, like, for myself, physically and mentally, and just try to be in the right headspace, stay present, glorify the process. That's what I tell my clients, too. I say, don't rush through your poses, take your time. Like,
Mhm.
I want you to be in your side pose, the pose before the back pose, for at least a split second longer, because I don't want you to just hit it and then move on. Like, just
Be rushing,
glorify
right?
it.
Yep. Yep.
And
Do
especially
you
with
Go ahead.
no, I
No,
was gonna say,
finish.
especially when you have adrenaline on stage, you're gonna want to do that.
Right. And that was actually going to feed into my next question, which was, do you feel stage fright or nerves before you get on stage, before you do your posing? And if you do, what is your process of dealing with that anxiety, that adrenaline pumping? How do you control yourself so that you look so elegant and graceful when you finally get on stage? Because you're
It's
someone that when you look at your posing, you're not shaking. You don't make a transition to your back pose and you see a little bit of skin movement because you're just like shaking. You do see that in girls, no matter how conditioned you are when their nerves hit? So how do you stay so composed?
so for me, it's weird because I I only started feeling not nervous for my individual routine and comparisons this year. I'd say all the shows leading prior to that, I've always had the jitters and the shakes, and how I compose myself is realizing, okay, first and foremost, yes, I'm shaking, and I'm like shaking. Take a deep breath, control your core, just focus on one element at a time. Right now right now your job is to angle to the judge and make sure
Mm-hmm.
that you're twisting your hips away and your upper body's to the front. Just focus on that. Focus on keeping the core tight. So just breaking it down and truly focusing on one component at a time. If you're really shaking on stage and you're scared, don't focus on the audience. Don't even think about the lights. Just focus on the head judge, aiming to the head judge, smiling, take a deep breath, like through your nose, and, just remember, you feeling like you're shaking on stage. Yes, you could see it in videos, but for the most part, nobody's truly looking into it that deeply. You know what I mean? So just reminding yourself it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just, for me, I pray for peace of mind before I go onto stage every single show. um and like the universe, God, whatever anybody believes in, like everything truly does happen for a reason. So just
Mm-hmm.
remember that it's all going to be fine. It's going to work out. My last show, Chicago Pro, I was not nervous whatsoever on stage, and
Aw, that's great.
it was nice. But when it came to comparisons, while I wasn't nervous, I was very emotional. So I consider Chicago Pro probably one of, like, this pro card win was definitely like one of the biggest moments, but Chicago Pro I would have to say is up there as well. And it's because when I got called out for first call outs, I felt tears in my eyes, and they were going to start falling, and at this point I had to tell myself, okay, you need to be a professional, like
Suck it
compose
up.
yourself. Like, don't start crying because you're happy. Like, you can do that after
Aw,
the show.
yeah.
So I was shaking during maybe a few rounds of the front to back comparisons, but then I quickly calmed down. And during those exact moments, I just, and this is going to be controversial, but I just focused on my mom. So she was at the front of the audience,
Aw,
and she was
that's
smiling.
cute.
She was like, "Remember, chest up, chest up." Like, she
Hmm.
cues me. And I just focused on her. I was like, "Okay, I'm going to focus on my mom, and I'm going to focus on the head judge. Just calm down. You have no reason to get emotional right now. You know, like, just, continue on." And then I finally calmed down after a few rounds. But then I cried tears of joy after prejudging, and I like ran to my mom and blah blah blah. But you know what happens? Everyone gets nervous or gets shakes, or even if
Yeah.
it's not nerves, we all have moments on stage where we're kind of like blacked out
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
It
Absolutely.
happens. And that's where muscle memory kicks in.
Very much so. Agreed.
So that's why practicing core control is very, very important as well, because it's like you can go through the poses, but if your core isn't really, if you're not controlling your core, it's not really going to tie the whole look together.
Yeah,
So
totally
making
agree.
that part of muscle memory as well.
Right. I feel like your core tends to be like the first thing that people drop. Aside from their glutes, it's
Yeah,
they lose their core. And you're right. That's like one of the biggest things that if you can learn how to keep your core tight and upright and controlled, the rest of your posing will fall into place, you know? But the
yeah,
second
exactly.
you lose your gut, the second you lose control, like you could have the smallest, tiniest waist, but it's just natural, like breathing processes and moving
Yeah.
processes. Sometimes it can give you a little round little pooch in the little
Hmm.
under area, you know, the below the belly button area. Sometimes like that could kind of push out a little bit when we're
Yeah.
females, depending on your time of the month too. So if you're able to really
Hmm.
control that no matter what, that's huge.
Yeah, for sure. And what helps me is remembering that yes, you want to arch your lower back in certain poses, but also when you're doing that, try to think about engaging your upper abs and just your whole core in general, and basically doing the opposite. Instead of arching that, tuck it in, but then
Hmm.
still try to feel that pressure in your tailbone. It's a very weird sensation, but just think tuck and then pinch for the
Hmm.
tailbone. That's like a normal cue that I would give my clients. Just because, when even if that little bit of like lifting that tailbone makes a huge difference in the roundness of your glutes. And I noticed that when I don't do that, my upper glutes can kind of fall. When I do that, my upper glutes can project up a little bit more. And again, little details make a big difference on stage. And the stage also makes you look bigger than you actually
Yes.
are, which is something that's really cool.
Yes.
Because I remember
Agreed.
stepping off of stage and I was like, wow, I look big. But then in real life, I'm not.
I know it can be a little bit of an illusion at times for sure. Um,
Hmm.
can you, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Um, how do you feel that newer athletes can get used to the feeling of being exposed in their bikini? You know, when it's your first show or your first few shows or you're kind of
Hmm.
prepping and you didn't even step on stage yet and you're just trying to practice your posing. What are ways that you feel that a girl can get more comfortable in being exposed in a thong and a string bikini and stripper heels?
So what I like to think about, so again, perspective. Don't think of it as, oh, I'm in a thong and stripper heels. Think of it as I've been working out at the gym. I've been, doing this exercise in order to grow my glutes or to grow my delts. This is me in a piece of clothing that is allowing me to see the art form and like what I've created. Think about it like that. And I know that's so cheesy and corny, but If you think about it like that, like for instance, like in our sport, when you and I look at bodybuilders or any division really, we don't see it in that way. We see it as in wow, like
Right.
their physique is crazy. Look at the hamstring separation. Look at the striations in this guy's delts, or like we
Right.
see it as in like all of the tendons are so cool, like everything's so cool. All of these workouts are sculpting our muscles. So look at it as in like this is just a piece of clothing that I wear so I can see what I've built better, so I can pose better and actually see how much I can open up or not open up, or do this and that. So just use it as a canvas.
Mm, that's awesome. I love that. And how do you feel that girls what are some tips that you can give them for how they can get used to walking around in their stage heels and getting comfortable on stage? What are some tips that you have given yourself or that maybe someone has given you to get more comfortable in the shoes?
So to get more comfortable with the shoes, don't don't think about, oh, I need to nail the bikini walk right then and there. Just think about getting into the shoes first and just walking normally. That's how I started. I just walked normally. I did everything normally. I wore my heels around the house just to get used to it. And then when I started getting deeper into posing, I realized, okay, now it's time to add a little bit of flair and emphasis to it. So adding to my normal walk, I began twisting my hips forward and backward a little bit. And I began thinking about putting a little bit more weight in my heels, and I began thinking about just like moving the upper body loosely with the lower half and everything like that. What was that noise? Did you hear that? That was such a weird noise.
No, do you want to go check?
No, it's okay. I think it's
Okay.
the TV just randomly turning
Uh-oh. You got a ghost.
on. But yeah,
All
that's
right.
like what I mainly would think about with the walk is just adding emphasis to your normal walk first. Don't
Mhm.
think too hard about it.
I agree. Yeah, the walk, and especially when you're in bikini, you don't even really need to worry about the walk, except for the walk to get
To the
into your
front.
middle. Yeah, just the walk to get to the center and then the walk off. Most bikini shows, well, all bikini shows, if you're just in your regular call out, you're not doing a walk to the back of the stage and back. 9 times out of 10, you're only doing that if you're in the bikini overall. And I've been in bikini overalls that they didn't do the walk even then. So,
Mhm.
it's good to know, it's good to practice, but if you're gonna do your first show, just worry about getting comfortable in the heels. Just like
Yeah.
focus on not being in excruciating pain. Focus on your foot placement where you don't have to look down before you look up to make sure your feet are in the right place. Just try and wear the heels as much as you can. That's something that I would say. Also, a tip that I could give, I'm sure you've probably done this or heard this, is well, number one, the Shoe Fairy shoes are the best, so make sure you get from the Shoe Fairy because they're 10 times more comfortable than any of the other stage heels that I've tried. Like, just not even a comparison. But if you want to get used to the plastic, wear your socks before you,
Yeah.
yeah, walk around in your socks with the heels on because that will help kind of I guess it's plastic. I don't think it's acrylic, like kind of stretch and mold to your foot a little bit. But you don't want to get too used to wearing the socks with your shoes where then you finally just like take them off at show day and you're like, ouch, this actually hurts because I haven't been putting the plastic on my feet this whole time and it's cutting
Yeah.
me. Like, you do unfortunately like almost need to build a little bit of like calluses on your feet so your feet are now comfortable and like prepped for the shoes to fit right. So do what you can to get yourself comfortable in the process of just like walking in them and being in them. But then beyond that, when you have to hit up the stage, you need to remember that your socks aren't going to be there. So make sure that you're still now comfortable to do everything you did prior with the comfortable socks on without them.
Yeah.
And also with the socks, with the shoes, do you find yourself practicing on different surfaces to do your
Yes.
posing?
I so at my mom's house she has hardwood floor, so I'll practice on hardwood floor. Sometimes I'll practice on tile, carpet,
Hmm.
basically every surface, turf. Just having that like good, just kind of like if a feel for every surface, because you never know. Some shows are carpeted. Junior
Yeah,
Nats, I'm pretty sure wasn't it carpeted or
yeah. And that
yeah.
shit can be
So
slippery. That can be slippery.
yeah, yeah, and it can be squishy too.
Yeah. It's
I
true. And
know
you could
at
change your
Olympia.
whole walk and things like that. Like your whole, how you like step into your pose can be different just depending on the flooring.
Exactly. And I remember, maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I heard that the 2022 Olympia, the stage was like a little squishy for some of the fitness
I think
competitors,
you're
I
right.
think.
I feel like I remember hearing that as well.
Yeah, so, but I could be wrong, but I remember hearing something like that. So again,
Yeah.
you never know. Like, even the biggest show in the world, it could surprise you.
Yeah, you really never
Hmm.
know. That should be something that like is like there are standards involved in terms of like the flooring that they lay down, but I know that a lot of the times like it is out of the promoter's control because
Yeah,
some venues just have certain restrictions for certain things and like at that point there's really nothing that they could do except their best.
yeah,
But you know,
exactly.
when you're like, I'm sure when you're like a fitness athlete who's doing flips and jumps and all that sort of stuff, like the flooring that they practice on day to day compared to now being on a carpet is going to be like entirely different, and that could really change how they're able to perform. So that's something that
Exactly.
even just being bikini girls in heels, we do need to take into consideration. You know, practice
Hmm.
on different floorings, break in your shoes, make sure that they're not super slippery, where if there is a slippery carpet on stage, you fall, you know, that would be horrifying. But
Yeah,
if you do fall, you just got to get right back up. You got to keep going.
exactly. Exactly.
Yes. All right. I'm going to ask you two more questions and then I'll let you go because we're already at an hour and I don't want to
Oh
keep
my
you
God.
too long. I know, but it's been great. I would
It's a
love to do
good
this again one
conversation.
day. Yeah, I have
Yes.
a bunch more that we could talk about, but I don't want to keep
Yay.
you too long and I don't want to, you know, have the episode be too long where people now
Yeah.
want to leave. So,
Yeah.
so
True.
yeah, like I guess the last like serious question that I will ask you
Hmm.
is what are give me like three of the biggest mistakes that girls
Hmm.
make that you see when they're first learning their bikini posing, or three things that they need to really get out of the habit of doing before they get used to their routine. Something like that.
I think it would honestly be, and again, this is something that I did, so that's why I'm gonna talk about it because I made these mistakes.
Mhm.
Worrying too much about twisting your waist all the way to the side and only showing off the side of your glute and having your foot be completely at 90 degrees and then not
Mhm.
showing your upper body. And the reason that I bring that up is because, first of all, I did that. I was so focused on only having the smallest waist and like only showing that glute profile that when I was doing my pose, I was not showing my back shoulder. It just looked like I was standing there like on
Mhm.
like just showing off my side, and
Yeah.
I just want people out there listening to know that bikini, it's not about having the best glutes on stage, it's not about having the most like standout body part, it's about being balanced, it's about being great everywhere, and that's what my coach says as well. But like, you want to showcase your upper body, you want to be opened up to the front, because that gives you the illusion of a smaller waist. And also, like in the model pose, so the pose that you would hit after the front pose, make sure that your upper body is still faced towards the front. Don't turn
Mhm.
away, because again, you want to showcase that hourglass silhouette. And another thing is, I'll just go through the side pose as well. Don't overturn your glutes to the judge. Don't be showing both sides of the glutes. Just think about showing off one side of your glute, and naturally the other side might show a little bit too, just depending on weight distribution. But just making sure that you're not too hyper fixated or only focused on one aspect of your physique. You want to make sure you're balanced. And I learned that because I looked at my front pose one day and I was like, it just doesn't look balanced. It just looks like I'm hiding my shoulder. It makes me look like I don't have shoulders. I need to fix this. So
Mhm.
just remembering there's more to poses than just like having the best glutes and smallest waist on stage. Like, obviously you want that on stage, but making sure that everything's balanced.
Yes. Agreed. Do you have anything
Hmm.
else that you would like to give our audience, our bikini girls out there, anything else that they should keep an eye out for or avoid?
I would say, and again, I know this is talked about sometimes, but just remember that posing and everything in general when it comes to this sport, everything's so individual. Yes, you can look at a competitor and be like, I want to get to that level. I want to pose like them. I want to be like them, you know? Absolutely, that's okay. Like you can use that as inspiration, but don't think that you need to be there or that that you want to aspire to look exactly like that, because at the end of the day, we can do everything the same, but we're all going to have different outcomes. You know, like if I were to try to emulate Laura Lee's posing and her exact transitions, it wouldn't look good on me because Laura Lee has a different structure. She's able to do these beautiful movements in her poses because she has that elegant, that really streamlined structure. Versus for me, I have a shorter torso. For me to do a specific pose like that, it's not like for me to open up like that. It's not going to work for me because I have a short torso. So again, you can admire people and see people and find inspiration from them, but again, don't compare yourself. Just admire the features that they have that you might not have or that might not be your strengths, and just work on making your perceived weaknesses into strengths or something that you can rectify and work towards, because we're all so different and we all have insecurities, you know? Like I I look at all the best athletes in the world and I know for a fact they have something that they probably aren't super proud of that's on themselves, and you just never know. Like for me, for instance, people tell me, I have a few people saying your arms are so beautiful on stage, like we really like how they move. Versus for me, when I look at my arms, I'm like, oh my god, like I have giraffe arms, like I have really long arms and legs but a
No, you
short
don't.
torso. So we all have things that we are insecure about, so don't compare, just admire.
That's great. I love that. And just a side note, before I
Hmm.
ask you your final question, you had mentioned that, you can't emulate Laura Lee's posing because it won't look good on you because
Yeah.
you have a short torso. That is not the case. You can make, and this is you and this is anyone out there. You can
Yeah.
make anything look good on you. It's just a
Yes.
matter of manipulating the movements so they fit
Yes.
you. So
Yes. You
I
worded that.
never want you to ever think that you could do something and it won't look good on you, because that is couldn't be farthest from the
No,
truth. You
I
could always look
appreciate
good.
that.
It's
No, I
just a
think for
matter
me,
of, you're right. We all have different bodies. We all have
yeah,
different shapes. And I believe that that's actually what makes bikini so amazing, because we
yeah,
don't all need to have a cookie cutter frame and physique and body structure and, measurements in order to compete. Like you can
yeah,
be 5'1", you can be 5'10", and you can be in the same class in the pro league, and you're all up against each other. And it really is just the luck of the draw. We're
yeah.
all beautiful. We all bring something different. And there are probably thousands of girls out there that will look at you, Tianna, and be like, I she's my height class. I see that she's doing these awesome things, and she reminds me of myself. I feel like I look like her if I dieted. So it's never a matter of like, just because you're not 5'7" like Laura Lee and have her structure, that you'll never be beautiful like that in posing. It's
No,
just a matter
yeah.
of like, you are such an inspiration to
Customizing
these
it.
girls, that like you have to like remember that you can make anything look good. You already are making everything look good. It's just a matter of making it into your own, because of what you can bring to the
I
table with your
appreciate
physique.
you. No, you know I look up to you so much. Like you're a big sister to me, so it just means a lot that like you took the time out of your day to let me be on your podcast too. I just hope this podcast can help at least one person out there, and I'm sure it will with your
I'm sure it
insights and
will.
everything too. And your knowledge, like I'm so happy that you got to provide your 2 cents in this as well, because I love the whole conversation, us talking. I learned a lot too throughout all this.
Yeah, and I'm very grateful that you took the time to be my first interview and to join me today to
I'm
talk about all this
excited.
bikini stuff, because we're both bikini geeks. Like, we both really
Yes.
do love this sport, and we're like thirsty for knowledge, constantly just trying to learn and be the best that we can, not even just for ourselves, but just so that we can
But
help share our knowledge with others and make them
exactly.
their best.
Exactly.
So I just want to ask you one more question and then I will let you go.
Hmm.
And my final question is, what lately has been your go-to song that you listen to when you're hitting your posing routines, when you're practicing your posing?
Oh gosh. Is it
What
bad
is
that I
the
don't
song that,
really
and what do
I
you
don't
find yourself
listen?
throwing on to do your posing to get like amped up to like kill it?
Honestly,
Or like right before
dramatic.
stage? Anything.
Dramatic music, like
Like what?
cinematic dramatic music.
Really?
What? Forgot this artist's name. His name is Tommy Pro something, Proflit or something like that.
Hmm.
But it's like it's the songs that Mitch from Gilco Productions will sometimes use for the
Okay.
bodybuilding men's routines.
Yeah.
I feel like it's dramatic because for my personal routine, I want to make the entrance a little bit like dramatic. So
Hmm.
I think about that way, and then it also kind of makes you feel like you're in a trailer. As cheesy as that sounds, but you
Not
know,
at all.
me living my childhood fantasies because I used to want to be on TV. Like I used to want to be on Disney Channel. A weird fact, but I
Oh,
just channeling my inner child.
that's amazing. I love that. I would have, honestly, I would have never expected that, but I love that, and I could totally see that you like
I
having your like moment in your brain when you're doing your posing, like,
just
this
turn
is
on your alter
now
ego.
my time. Yes, you're just showing
Mhm.
up. The character comes
Yeah.
through. It's
But
amazing.
then, like in real life, people see me and they're like, "How is she even a bodybuilder?" Because of my choice of clothing.
Ah, that's all right. And then you whip it off, and then you're like, oh, I get it
Yes,
now. I see it. All right.
but
Well, thank you, Tianna, for joining me again. I am
thank
very, very
you.
grateful. I am going to, oh, before we leave, shout out your social medias, your links where that people can find you for posing and all that fun stuff.
So my Instagram is my name, all lowercase, Tianna Tianna dot Weymouth, underscore IFBB Pro. And my posing and all of my links are actually in the link in my bio. I have Linktree,
Great.
so you can just access all of the links there, my YouTube, TikTok, everything.
Woohoo! Awesome. Yes, definitely go book her for a session. And let her know you found her from the Bikini Geek. This way she can
Yeah.
give you her best, not that she wouldn't, but she's going to give you her best treatment no matter what. But, yes, if you have any questions, you guys want to find anything else out from Tianna, let me know in the comments. Feel free to engage with this podcast, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you
Yay.
again,
Thank you for
Tianna.
having me.
And I'll see you guys soon. Thanks for joining us today. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Woohoo.